Hello boys and girls. Today I'm going to show you how to create this pot of flowers for spring. You can use whatever type of art material you'd like. I'll be using colored pencils, actually watercolor pencils, but you could use crayons, colored pencils, watercolor, markers, anything that you want to color. So for the beginning of our art lesson, I'm going to show you how to draw some sort of a pot to put our flowers in. When you're drawing a pot, you want it at the bottom part of the page. So I'm just going to draw a line across my page. Here's the middle, a little bit lower. Try to make it straight as you can. It's okay if it's a little bit crooked. I'm going to try to make my pot symmetrical. That means what's on this side of the page is also going to be on this side of the page, but actually it's going to have reflective symmetry. And I'm going to make the top of my pot, and I'm going to make it come a little bit of a diagonal line, slope down a little bit, slope down a little bit. And then I am going to draw the bottom. If you want a base like I have, you can put that on. Again, what you have on one side, you put on the other. So I'm constantly going back and forth with my drawing. And this is pencil so that I can erase. I'll make that a little bit darker so that you can see. First, I drew the top of my pot. Then I drew the sides. Next, I'm going to draw a design in the middle. In this project, I have a heart with some spirals and this kind of like floral kind of design. I'll do something a little bit different. How about a bee? So I'm going to find the middle because again, I want reflective symmetry. What's on one side is going to be on the other. And I'm going to draw the body of my bee, so that it's centered in that line. Make this point down a little bit. Then I'm going to draw this part of the body. We'll make a little area here, a little furry area. And then we'll draw the eyes and the head. Of course, bees have antennae. I'm running out of room, so I'll go over here. And we'll make them spiral. Again, you want to make sure what's on one side is the same as what's on the other side. So this one's a little bit longer. And you notice what I did there? Sometimes I use my pencil to measure to make sure that what's on one side is on the other. And I need my wings. So I'll just put a mark here. And I'll go on the other side and put a mark there for where my wings are going to stretch up. Stretch up. Make sure they're the same size. This one's a little bit shorter, okay? And this is going to come down to the middle here. So we want it to come down at an angle. This one down at an angle. And their wings are transparent, which means you can see through them. So we'll overlap that a little. So notice how I always go back and forth. What I do on one side, I do on the other. Then my bee needs some legs. And we're going to make them segmented. They're not exactly symmetrical. That's okay, because the legs can move in different directions. And there I have a bee. If you want to add some other decorative elements to it, We have to separate the parts. And maybe you want to add a little bit of a decoration. What you do on one side, do on the other. And my pot is complete. Now it's time to start the flowers. So for my example, I have some big flowers spaced out on top, and they're kind of like a rose with this kind of squiggly line. So what I want to do is I want to draw circles where I'm going to put my flowers. Okay, I'm drawing in pencil because these flowers overlap. Some are on top of other ones. So I'm going to be erasing a lot of my pencil, but I am pressing harder so that you can see it. Start in the middle and do a spiral lightly that goes around each of your flowers, however you want them. Carry this one a little bit more. Okay, next, what you're going to do, I'll actually do this in Sharpie so that I can just erase it afterwards. Oh, I'm going to have to erase more. Okay, so I'm going to start in the middle. On this line, I'm going to make a wavy line. For each of my flowers. And then I can come back with my eraser and erase. Okay? That's how I'll be creating those flowers. The smaller flowers I'm going to create by drawing a little circle where I want them. See how much smaller my circles are? Again, they can overlap. That makes it more interesting. Oop, that one can't overlap because I did it with Sharpie. Okay. Then in the center of these circles, I'm going to draw a little circle. And then I'm going to turn these little circles into a scalloped line. A scalloped line is the petals, just like this. And there you have a different type of flower. So all it is a bunch of curved lines all touching one another. Now my lines are getting very sloppy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing some erasing. So I will do the yellow flowers first. I'm going to actually change the middle of the yellow flowers to be tiny little scalloped circles. Then I'm going to go over the outside of each of my flower petals with the Sharpie. And I will finish my bigger flowers by starting this wavy line. also added a little bit of interest to my little flowers by adding some little lines inside of my petals. You can place your flowers wherever you want. You'll notice I kind of spread them out. I also want to draw some leaves. When I draw the leaves, for the little flowers, I kind of made these leaves like this. I made a stem and then I made little leaves growing off of it. See how I draw right on top of my pencil, on top of my flower pot? Because I know I want the leaf on top and the flower pot behind. I also made some bigger leaves. For my roses. That you could actually make a little bit spiky with a zigzag line if you wanted to add even some more variety. That would be up to you. Now the last type of flower that I did in my arrangement were these blue flowers here. And the way that I did those is I would start at the top with a little circle, and then I would make the same size circles. They can get a little bit bigger as you go down. And I'd fill out my flower just like this. And that's it. So I'm going to continue drawing. You can fill in flowers and leaves wherever you want. You want to make sure that things are coming all the way off the side, like I have a leaf over here. You want to fill in these areas so it really looks like there are leaves and flowers popping out of everywhere. And you just keep adding on wherever you feel like you might need a flower. A yellow flower over here, I think. And now it's time to add color. You can use completely different colors than what I have here. You can color however you want. You can leave things white if you'd like. You're going to need green for the leaves, but what I used is, I think I used kind of this pinkish color for these. And what I tried to do is when I colored, I tried to press harder when I wanted the color to be darker or look like it had a shadow. And I pressed lighter when I wanted it to look like it was hit by light or had a highlight. So that would be like the edges here. I made them pressed harder to make it look like there was a little bit of a shadow. I think for this example, I want some brighter colors, so I'm going to use a pink, but I'm not going to press quite so hard. We'll see how that turns out. You can always make it darker if you don't like how it looks. You can always go back in, but you can't always make it lighter if you make it too dark. So make the center of my flower darker for this one. So this is how I colored the flowers. Trying to add some shadow, makes it look a little more dimensional, a little more interesting. One trick that I did learn is that I did not have a green that was dark enough for this background color. So what I did is I used the green that I had and I colored it in, but then I used the opposite color. The opposite color of green is red. So I took some red and I actually went on top of my green to create an even darker looking color. A dark green that looked like the background was in the shadow. If I have leaves up front, I wanted them to look a lot lighter. Unless, of course, there's one overlapping, then I'm going to make a shadow behind it. So it'll be a little bit darker where it's behind the flower. And then I press lighter. Okay. You can use different types of green for different areas. Maybe you want a different shade of green for we'll call these spirally flowers roses. Different shade for roses. Just color it in. And I think I'll use a sky blue for my flower pot. This one I used a darker blue. I think I'll brighten that up a little bit. We'll see the difference. You can use any color you want. You want a pink flower pot, a brown flower pot, an orange flower, any color that you want is totally up to you. You are the artist. I think what I'll do for my little flowers is I think I'll actually make the center yellow. And I might leave the petals white. So if I want white petals, maybe I'll use this gray and kind of add a little bit of gray in the middle. Now, as I said, these are Crayola colored pencils, but they're watercolor pencils. So before I continue coloring this, I just want to show you how this works. What you would do is you'd color your entire drawing and then use a little bit of water. Here's my cup. It used to be a frosting cup. A little bit of water. Put at the edge of your cup and then just paint your colors. Do one flower at a time. Make sure you wash off your brush before you put it in another color. And your colors will come out darker. It's up to you. You could leave it as colored pencil. If that's all you have is colored pencil, that will look fantastic as well. Just wanted to show you a different type of drawing / painting medium. Okay, we'll see how the dark green comes out. You want to be careful not to go over. So see, I'm using the tip of my brush. It mixes with the red, and you can see how nice and dark that came out. This green is a lighter green. So you can see the different shades of green and how they come out when you use the watercolor. Experiment. Have fun. Let's see, the gray, just a little bit. We want to leave it mostly white. And Okay, so like I said, normally you don't want to use the watercolor pencils on wet paper because it will create a line and it won't be as easy to control. So you want to use the colored pencils first and then use the water on top. And you don't need to dip the colored pencils in the water if you're using this medium. And if you need, just like say you need a blue from one area, oh, I can spread this out a little bit more. So say I want some of this blue in my bee wing. So maybe what I do is I just do this on another piece of paper. I could take some blue from up here and I can just kind of add it down here. I don't know if you can even see that in this light. But that makes it look transparent because we want our wing to look like it is see-through. And my coloring is done. Oh, except for this little spot. I add the darker green by adding some red first. And then the green. Now the nice thing about these watercolor pencils is that after it's dry, if you find that you want something to be darker, you can go back into it with a little bit of colored pencil, maybe add a little more detail on it, and decide how dark or light you want something. Another thing that you can do is if you want to lighten a color, you can just go over it with some water and then take a paper towel and blot it. When you blot something, you're just putting it down on the spot. You're not rubbing it, which could damage the paper or could spread the color where you do not want it. So if you think that something's too dark and you want to lighten it, just go over it with a little bit of water and just carefully with a paper towel blot that spot and it will pick up some of the color. Okay, now when you're working with water, again, less is more. You always want to take your paintbrush and put it on the side of your cup and get the excess water off. You can also use a paper towel to, blot it on that. You want to start with the lighter colors first, so you start with the whites. I added blue because I realized that my pot was blue. So instead of having the gray, I thought we'd bring up the color and create some balance to our work. Because if all the blue is at the bottom and there's no blue at the top, then it's gonna not be as visually appealing. So when you're doing this, you want to go in one color first. So if I'm doing the blue first, I'm gonna do all of that color blue. Jump around my painting a little bit. Instead of going from one color to another, because then they might get a little bit muddy and they might mix together a little bit. So these still look like white flowers because I left the edges white. But I have a little bit of a shadow in the blue. So then the rest is my pot here. The more water that you use with watercolor, the less control you'll have. Sometimes you like that effect. You want something to look like it kind of bleeds into another color. But sometimes that's not what you're looking for. So, as I said, always take the excess water off, and then you have much more control. And if you don't have enough water on your brush, you can just go back in and get some more water, just like I did. So you can see these are lighter areas of blue. Down here I pressed harder with the blue, so we'll see what that looks like. That's a little bit darker blue. And you're just being careful to stay within the color. I'm not going over everything. I'm going around my bee. I don't want to get my bee covered in the blue of the background. Okay. And you might not have a bee, maybe you have a flower here instead, or maybe you have a heart, or maybe you have a star. You could draw whatever you want in the middle. Okay, and I will continue with this and be right back. And my artwork is complete. Both pictures are very similar. I placed everything pretty much in the same spots, but I brightened the colors of one. You can do whatever colors you would like. Please don't forget your artist's signature. On your work, and I can't wait to see what you create.